What?
Like a handgun. For personal protection. If somebody tries to mug you.
What?
What if your government tries to throw you in a can?
What?
You're gonna want a shotgun.
What?
One automatic rifle. And a lot of ammo.
Gun?
Yeah, gun.
We're all set to riot. Buy a gun before you lose your Second Amendment. Buy a gun. They'll burn you out like you Waco. They'll stick your ass in a camp. 10 footy cops in riot gear, gonna kick your ass and laugh. The revolution is on its way. Better lock and load your AK. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. We're all set to riot. Buy a gun before you lose your Second Amendment. Buy a gun. They gave your money to the banksters. They stole your pension funds. It's time that we took to the streets. It's time we had our turn. A revolution is on its way, and the founding fathers would say, buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. Revolution's not clean and neat, you gotta riot in the streets. Revolution's not clean and neat, you gotta drag them through the streets.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is Tuesday. This is PrimerTime on UCY. My name is Michael, and I'm bitterly clinging to the basket of the Deplorables.
You are firmly entrenched in that basket. I'm Nicholas. It's good to be back. I had to take a week off last week, but here I am, ready for the bringing of the noise, as Public Enemy used to say.
So let's get down to brass tacks. Do you think that the fainting was the shot heard around the world, or is this a disqualifying event?
So here's what I think, and like I said, I don't have Alzheimer's, I don't have Parkinson's disease, and I think those are quite a few of the medical conditions that are being thrown around as far as what affliction may be festering below the surface. I think what we can say is that somebody with pneumonia does not go out anywhere and cling on to little kids who are supposedly may or may not have been with the Pope as well. You know what I mean?
I think this whole thing really stinks of, far worse than the farts you get when you take a whole lot of antibiotics. This is really just more in-your-face shenanigans and.
Yeah, I think the big thing is that you can't make a diagnosis based off of any one singular event or singular symptom. I don't think that anybody who is trained in the medical profession would do that. I think that only the person who is her physician is going to have an intimate knowledge of her history of falls, blood clots, concussions, broken bones at places where she should be able to defend herself from such things, and her subsequent inability to do that. I think you can take a look at the video that was posted by a guy named Zdanek. He posted that Twitter video, and I will tell you that if you went down below the actual video and you read the comments from the news media outlets that wanted to get a hold of that quickly and start crediting him for it to be able to run it on their websites, it was a who's who of every credible news, ABC outlets, CBS outlets, NBC outlets. The Washington Post got in on it. I think the Washington Post said it best. Hillary's health is a major concern, and this is now in play. This is something that the average American, in terms of,
and this is also right after Washington Post said that any talk of Hillary's health is a conspiracy theory and is potentially racist and bigoted and aligned with David Duke.
Oh, yeah, I mean, but never mind the fact that she was aligned with Robert Byrd, who she called her mentor. Robert Byrd, the
Yeah.
senator from West Virginia, who was a longtime member of the Ku Klux Klan. So here's the deal. You know, if you have pneumonia, you have to get X-rayed. If you have pneumonia, you are set aside. You are sequestered from other people to avoid infecting them. If you have just had a severe fainting spell, which everyone with half a brain can see that she did prior to getting picked up and taken away from the 9/11 ceremony. You know, here's a question that nobody who is entrenched in that campaign can answer. Hillary Clinton does not wait on vehicles to show up. Vehicles wait on Hillary Clinton, except for the fact that just as she was getting ready to enter said vehicle, she was totally rigid in a posture that had her leaning against a bollard that she was not able to control herself. She was extremely rigid. When she started to move, she had no ability to control her motor function and nearly collapsed without the aid of additional people. Those two people who stood by her side, whether it be the physician that is Lisa Bardak or the other Secret Service agents, she would have face planted again. And that would have been on the corner of a curbstone. And you think a concussion is the least of her worries at that part. Because you know what? If she hits the ground, it's over. It's over. You have somebody who is what we would call infirm being the candidate for the highest office in the land.
I would say that that the title of infirm is appropriate at this point. It's odd to me. It's obvious she doesn't have the stamina. I mean, even if you just compare her campaign events to Donald Trump's, no matter what you think of Trump, and I'm not a Trump supporter at all, but I mean, honestly, I would be a not Hillary if that option was on there. But
yeah,
you know,
well, I mean, the thing that I think of is you look at the big event was the meeting that she had done in Cleveland at the same time Trump was in Cleveland. You won't hear any audio of Donald Trump in Cleveland, but you will hear audio of Hillary Clinton going through a 4.5-minute coughing fit where she cannot get control of herself. You know, there's a couple of videos that are out there floating around right now. There's a doctor from, I believe he's from the Miami area, who goes into a pretty lengthy descriptive essay, I'll call it, of why he believes that Hillary Clinton is suffering from Parkinson's disease. You know, that may well be. You know, he's got some political bias in there that, you know, with some of the comments he makes in addition to giving his hypothesis. So, you know, obviously he's got an agenda, he's got a beef to pick, and you know, hey, that's his deal. But I'll tell you, when you look at the symptoms that she displays, this is a sick person, and I'm not talking just like sick in the head. This is a physically and mentally incapable person who is being pushed as the solution for, you know, one half of the other half of the non-deplorables. You know what I mean?
I think putting a good 25% of the country into this, you know, basket of deplorables is really
this is her
more of a signaling than they should have done.
Yeah, this is the thing really, that just like Mitt Romney said, you know, 47% of Americans don't pay their taxes. This is her Waterloo. I think, honestly, there were questions before.
I think this is far worse than Mitt Romney's 40% of Americans don't pay taxes, because he does have a point. I mean, what he said was most likely insensitive, but it was, for the most part, factually accurate. This is, and it was, his remarks were sort of off the cuff, and that was recorded surreptitiously. He wasn't necessarily aware he was going to be, you know, giving that speech in front of the entire fucking nation. But Hillary, those were prepared remarks, and not only had she prepared remarks for that speech, but she had given an almost exact same speech, calling the basket of deplorables phrase and using everything that she considers to be deplorable, and that she had given that on Israeli TV about 2 days before that. Not a bit of coverage of that.
Yeah, well, you know, here's the thing. It's kind of funny that on a national stage, she has to be. What was it? There was the person that is being referred to as her handler, the large black African American, who is, you know, been photographed with a diazepam or something similar.
I don't think that's a. I don't. That's an injector. That's not an auto pen. I think that's a flashlight. Honestly, I don't think that's any sort of injector. I don't think she's. If she was as sick like that, they would dope her up in the dark. They would have and what I mean by dope her up in the dark, behind curtains, and out of the view of the press, anybody who's got a camera, in a phone-free zone. They wouldn't, with today's, well, honestly, with today's pharmaceuticals, there's no reason that she'd need to have a booster shot unless she's seriously tied up into the whatever kind of dope it is. And when it comes down to it, if people are thinking that it's diazepam, you got to look at what that is. It's a benzodiazepine, and what does that do? It kind of suppresses the central nervous system and calms you down. I don't think she's got issues with that. I think she probably is in a position where she actually needs stimulants, not a depressant to be able to function in life.
Yeah, I think
she just doesn't have it. I don't think she needs downers. She needs uppers.
Well, there's always been the statement that she's low energy, right? One of the issues that I think is really coming up is that with the coughing fits that she has, she cannot finish her sentence without breaking into one of those. And the problem is that people are going to sit there and base their judgment on whether or not to vote on her or vote for her based on her ability to convey her points. So, you've got a group of people who are going to vote for her no matter if she's dead and propped up like it was Weekend at Bernie's. You've got that population that's out there. You also have a significant portion of Americans that really don't want to vote for her and are waiting for some kind of catalyst to say, you know what, here's exactly why you shouldn't. And I think that for a lot of people, this has been a very bad 2 weeks for Hillary.
I think anybody that looks at her and that incident and her physical ability cannot even begin to put her in some sort of competition or some sort of confrontation against somebody like Putin or the Chinese leader. I think it's Xi. I think is his name.
Xi Jinping.
Xi Jinping. You couldn't put her, into a room to negotiate, the death of the dollar.
Yeah,
it wouldn't work. And to be honest with you, that's kind of bad for them because she's already owned by China. I mean, look, she's from Little Rock. Walmart's a huge corporation there. Walmart is, nothing but Chinese stuff coming in. I think Little Rock's got like the largest concentration of Chinese Americans outside of like San Francisco or something like that. Her husband sold all the missile technology, Loral Missile Systems. He sold or allowed the merger of Motorola and that Chinese company and basically allowed everything for China to pick up IBM, which became Lenovo. I mean, they sold this out a long time ago, China of today is not China of, Vietnam era or 1980s era where everybody saw, highways packed with people on rickshaws. No, those are full of cars now, people.
Yeah. And they still don't have driver's licenses.
But you know what? Do you remember the movie Kingpin? Once again, I don't like to refer to movies a whole lot, but there was that scene where Bill Murray, who's the evil bowler, wins the tournament and gets his check for $1 million. He says, "I finally have enough money to get away with anything."
Yeah, I think that movie came out while I was on one of my many overseas trips.
Yeah, you didn't get to catch that in the big PX.
Yeah. Now, the way I look at Hillary Clinton is no fan of guns. She, as a Secretary of State, prohibited the re-importation of M1s from South Korea that were part of our Lend-Lease program with them. That's enough for me not to vote for her. That's enough for me to tell other people not to vote for her.
I didn't need. Yeah, that's a pretty good picture you dropped right there. I didn't need anybody else's opinion. I mean, I remember the '90s very well.
See, that's the problem. We have an entire generation of millennials who are just entering their first opportunity to be voters, and they don't remember the '90s. They don't remember life under the Clinton team. They don't remember
They don't remember Hillary Clinton. They
yeah.
don't remember Whitewater. They don't remember any. They don't remember the bombing of Kosovo. They don't
Oh no,
remember
they
any
don't
of that
remember
stuff.
Waco. They don't remember any of that stuff. You know,
Yeah, I don't.
you talk about domestic terrorism. That could have been Janet Reno.
This might be an unpopular sentiment, but I think our government makes the best terrorists. I think that the war on terrorism is actually a war on the people. I think that was declared, honestly, with Oklahoma City, and it's been sort of the plan, and yeah, it gets into whatever they call the vast right wing conspiracy and all that.
That was another Hillary Clinton lie.
Right.
Remember, the vast right wing conspiracy was people going after her husband, right? The vast right wing conspiracy was making up that her husband was having sex in the Oval Office with Monica Lewinsky. That was the vast right wing conspiracy that she claimed. Just like she claimed she landed in Bosnia under sniper fire. Except for that's a lie.
It was always undefined, so it was always able to encompass other things. The Whitewater scandal was part of the vast right wing. The White House travel office was part of the vast right wing conspiracy. But many of the so-called, quote unquote, Arkanside incidences are a part of the vast right wing conspiracy. The death of Mary Mahoney at the Georgetown Starbucks, that's a vast right wing conspiracy. This is the most maligned woman in the United States, and
this is the smartest woman in the United States. You know what I mean?
Yeah, crazy like a fox or whatever. Yeah, it's I don't know. I think we're at a point right now that this incident has made. I've always been, since this whole thing has started, I've always been of the opinion that it's Hillary. She is the chosen one. That it doesn't matter what events happen or anything. She was always be installed, no matter no matter who she ran against, anything. I find it kind of funny. The only person that Hillary Clinton could have beat is Donald Trump, and the only person that Donald Trump could have beat is Hillary Clinton. But aside from that big old gigantic shit show, I think this thing getting out on tape and becoming an unavoidable event for the press to cover, since it was kind of broadcast outside of their grip and gained traction outside of their grip. I no matter how accurately Diebold counts the votes in favor of Hillary, I don't think the people are going to believe that she is the winner, and I think that's going to erode faith in this system further. And I honestly think that her fainting was the first shot fired around the world for the
So the interesting thing is that there is historical precedent in a campaign, or a not necessarily a political campaign, but you could say a campaign because it was a military campaign, and that was of the forces of El Cid Campeador in Spain, in medieval Spain, to rid the area around Valencia of Moors, which we call Muslims now, but were Moors back then. Once he passed away during battle, his body was propped up on his horse and made to ride around with his forces, which ended up inspiring them to victory. Do you think that you can see Hillary Clinton having that done should things go bad?
I think that's what we're seeing right now. She's totally propped up on the horse, and honestly, she's impervious to the many slings and arrows and spears that the corpse of El Cid took. I think there's nothing you cannot kill the undead.
Well, and this is the thing. So aside from her stance on guns and the fact that she wants nothing and no one in this country to be able to defend themselves, she wants no one to be able to own firearms. That's her party platform. That's her championship cause. Because in effect, Hillary Clinton is the face of the Democrat Party. It's not Bernie Sanders. It's not Wasserman Schultz or whoever they installed to take over after she got outed for being the creator of the Taco Bowl voter list. But Hillary is anti-gun no matter which way you slice it. She wants the assault weapons bill. She wants it back. You know,
And she wants Australia-style gun confiscation.
that's
She
right.
doesn't
She'll say
want-
gun control because she
But it-
wants it to believe like, hey, there's an element of responsible ownership here.
and they will all be enforced of buybacks. So, number one, you never bought it from me in the first place, so you cannot buy it back.
Or I didn't buy it from
And,
the government, so they can't buy it back from me.
Right, and then this whole thing about fair compensation. It doesn't matter how much money that they give you for it. I mean, they control the money. They make all the money. They adjust the value of the money without you having a say. The only thing that you have actually that's of any value is a firearm or a precious metal that holds its value. And honestly, if you don't believe me about that, would you rather be slapped in the head with let's say $5,000 of cash or $5,000 of gold? You know, that's 3 ounces in a sock right around the head. That'll whap somebody pretty damn good. You know.
Yeah. Oh well, you look at that. We just wasted a ton of time on Hillary Clinton.
Look, dude, her husband got a blowjob. This woman's gonna fuck the whole country. I think it's worth 20 minutes. I mean, seriously, it's just. It's in your face. The media is playing nothing but. I think she was actually overcome with grief at the 9/11 ceremony. That's why she had to leave. You know, please. And then this is nothing compared to Donald Trump and David Duke and their refusal to repudiate and place him into the basket of deplorables with, you know, the other 25 million people that they just threw into that. I mean, this is really big stuff. And then, don't want to go out on the edge or nothing, but DHS takes over the elections, and
DHS, whose secretary was the same guy that gave us the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Jay Johnson.
Look, if you're gay, that's your own issue, but there's certain risks to society above, you know, whatever you want to view as a homophobic assault. And I'd like to get at something that kind of like bugs me is the Red Cross now accepting gay blood donations, and I really have a serious problem with that. I think the lobby that pushed for that is frankly not on the American people's side. The Red Cross is a federally chartered organization, so they're going to do whatever the big money tells them to do. But if you really look at it, the Red Cross has been under a consent decree and is potentially liable for like a $10,000 a day fine for like, I don't know, the last 30 years or something like that. They've got all these like rules they have to change, and it comes directly out of the AIDS and hepatitis crises in the late 70s and early 80s. And yeah, they've changed a whole lot of procedures, and I would say that it was even relatively safe to receive Red Cross blood prior to this gay reversal ruling. And look into autologous donations if you have to go get any kind of surgery done. It'll cost you, fuck, everything costs you.
Yeah.
Freedom isn't free, but you can finance it.
That I know. Oh well, so let's talk a little bit about something that is probably going to be near and dear to your heart. I'm gonna drop it here in chat. CCI is advertising a Copper 22 long rifle round at 1,850 feet per second, 21 grain. What do you think?
I'll tell you what. We discussed that just a tad little bit last week. We didn't really get into it, but that's kind of an interesting topic because we have a listener, SLC, who's actually purchased some of that. It was for sale for him. I believe it was $7.50 in his area, and I find that round to be a little bit interesting. It's very similar to CCI had a product within the last couple of years called a 22 Green, and it's not necessarily green match, which is a different kind. They mean green is an eco.
Yeah,
and,
that's the new firearms industry attempt at being eco-friendly.
It was this bullet is a 20 grain bullet, and what it's made out of is it's sintered copper and polymer particles, and so it makes a lead-free projectile. Which I don't see how putting polymer into the ground is any better than putting an element into the ground, but whatever. and it's an ultralight bullet. It's 20 or 21 grains, and it has the full bullet profile of a standard 22 long rifle, and it achieves that extra 250 feet per second by the lessening of the actual bullet weight.
Yeah, the density.
I wonder about the density and the weight of the cartridge. Well, it's got like the same cross section and the same overall dimensions of the cartridge and the projectile. Something I wonder about on that rifle, on that is its availability to and ability to function in semi-automatic rifles like 10-22. I think it would. I don't know about the amount of gas it would make, if it would make sufficient gas to cycle a 10-22 bolt. It makes enough velocity. To me, it feels like it should, because there's other 22s that have a sub-weighted particle projectile that do not cycle in a 10-22 or in a semi-automatic. I wonder if this does, but it's a CCI product, and I truly trust the CCI Corporation. I guess you could call it an endorsement. We're not paid by them. I wish we were.
Yeah, we have a hell of a lot more ammo to shoot, that's for sure.
Just send me whatever you guys got left. It's cool. But I truly believe in CCI products, and I think if they're going to put it out there, they're going to make it on the product. And if it's not a big seller, I think it'll come off the market. But at this point, 22 is still rare enough throughout the nation that any kind of 22 you get a hold of is pretty much a good deal.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting. The U.S. Army did some testing with green ammunition back a few years ago. They were under the push to really get rid of lead, in our ammunition as an environmental contaminant. They said, hey, we ruined Iraq, we ruined Afghanistan, we put a lot of lead into their people and the rest of the country. So there was a lot of research being done on improving ammunition, or at least converting it to this eco-friendly green ammunition. And against hard plates, steel plates, the ammunition, the bullet projectile itself does really it dissolves into dust. Whether or not that's going to be effective, I've seen mixed reviews on it. I personally don't want to use something like that. I want something that's going to go through and do a energy dump into my target. I would prefer that it's moving, fast enough to do damage, but slow enough to actually make a big hole.
Right. I actually got a chance to watch something that a little bit interesting, and it was a United States Marine Corps video on the Barrett 50 cal semi-automatic rifle and its various ammunition. So it's about a 7 or 8 minute video, and it's quite informative and no bullshit about it. He shows what the rifle is, gives the main parts of the rifle, discusses 4 separate rounds, and proceeds to shoot things. And it's kind of amazing the power that it has. But I was wondering, hey, have you ever dealt with any of what they call the slap rounds?
Special load armor piercing.
Yeah, it's the sabeted light.
Well, they call them special load armor piercing. That's what we get told they're called. So
okay.
We've heard that in the 50 cal is where we get those.
Right. Have you had any kind of experience with those? They said that round does not actually work in the Barrett M82A.
I don't know. We have had them issued to soldiers that operate the M250 caliber machine gun. I personally don't have any experience using them because I just use a regular ball ammunition, and I've fired a 50 cal enough times to know that whatever I shoot with it is going to have a significant emotional event.
I understand that. Hey, listen, I want to pick your brain about something that's been in the American media and not necessarily covered a lot, but you have some direct contact with that. And in Iraq and Afghanistan, there were biometric scanning of the citizenry. Well, what do you know about that?
Boy, it's really hot in Virginia.
I understand that. Okay. Well, I mean, the reason why I brought that up is it's been in the news, and there were stories about it, but there's not a whole lot of stories about it, and I just didn't mean that in a bad way.
So basically, what you have is a program that comes from the United States, and we don't only do this in Iraq and Afghanistan. We do this in other places around the world where their governments work with us and our special operations forces to really get a biometric watch list of a lot of the citizenry. When it comes to doing things like, so say you're an Afghan or you're an Iraqi and you want to work on a American or a coalition base, well, you got to go ahead and submit to the biometrics enrollment, which is there's a device called a BATS, which is a biometrics automated tool set, a HIDE, or a SEEK. These are just not like SEEK like you're from India, but it's SEEK, SEEK. These are different tools that are issued to soldiers and the different contractors for the Department of Defense to biometrically enroll people to get biographical information such as their dates, places of birth, fingerprints, retina scans, and we can upload that, and it is brought to a Department of Defense repository, and then it is actually used throughout the world to determine whether or not somebody needs to be watch listed, and or if somebody has been previously involved through a forensic examination with a emplacement of an IED that's detonated that we've actually done battlefield forensics on, and we have their fingerprints. That's been going on since 2003, at least for the Iraq and as far back as 2001 for going into Afghanistan.
Now, this isn't unique to the United States Army. I believe that the nation of Venezuela has something similar in place that's required for all transactions, for a biometric identification system that's basically linked to your bank account, your citizen number. You know,
yeah, I can't speak to that, but I can specifically speak to if you want to work on a U.S. facility overseas, you are subject to biometric enrollment. And the reason is because we've created that database of persons that at some point or another, you know, we're going to come into contact with an American citizen or a soldier somewhere, and we want to know if that person is in the business of building bombs and putting them on the side of the road.
Damn self-radicalized jihadis.
Yeah.
All right, so let's segue out of that and into something a little more comfortable. What about this story that 50% of Army recruits have never touched a rifle?
I think I said it best when I said it before. 50% of Army recruits have not even touched their own sweat.
That's kind of an amazing statement on not necessarily the state of today's military, but the capability of today's military.
It's not even the state of the military or the capability of the military, because we're talking about people who have not even left for basic training, not even done anything to become, you know, a member of the military apparatus. We're talking about the average citizen who enlists between the age of 17, 18, all the way up to 25, 30, which is, you know, at least for the Army, that's our target demographic. We're really looking for those people aged 18 to 24. The Army will now take people up to the age of 39. It's one of those things that, hey, you know, we're going to give you an opportunity to do 20 years in uniform. You got to do it before the age of 60. So there you go. But yeah, there was actually a report from the head of the U.S. Army Recruiting Command a few years back that said, you know, the quality of the average recruit is so low that, you know, as it stands, the U.S. Army and military service in general is less than 1% of our nearly 330 million person population in the United States. When we take a look at who is actually eligible to enlist, it's an infinitesimal number, because you're talking about somebody who has to hit a set of enlistment standards that is not only physical, but it's mental aptitude and its moral ability to stay out of trouble. I'll tell you, we have waivers, you know, for all three things, you know, medical, physical, or moral. And depending upon, who's in Congress at the moment and who's saying, you got too many rapists in the Army, more or less may be issued in terms of the waivers that get thrown around. But the problem is very few people actually coming into the Army, or any branch of the service for that matter, don't need some kind of waiver to get in. Very, very few people. And I can count on one hand the number of people who I had trouble-free enlistments with. And guess what? None of them were actual U.S.-born citizens. These guys were either naturalized or legal green card holders.
That's kind of a statement to the changing of the American dream. I'll give you just a little experience from my life. And I live in a somewhat rural area, and it's a highly Mexican area. It's near the Mexican border, and
make Texas
my
Mexico
neighbor
again.
Yeah, well, it's. I think Texas was always kind of part Mexico, and Mexico was always part Texas. So it's that argument kind of doesn't hold water for me. But my neighbor's an immigrant, and he's the embodiment of the American dream. He's got a wife and 3 lovely children who are clean and well behaved. He's got a nice house. He's got 2 brand new vehicles, and he runs a business where he gives a good, dependable product for a fair price. And he's doing well. And maybe that dream has been, subtitulado en español en SAP-2,
Yeah. Okay. Well, the funny thing is like I said, when I was putting in a lot of people, and I recruited in the San Francisco Bay Area, not a hotbed of patriotism if you've ever been there, which is really sad because that area largely depended upon the U.S. Army specifically to rebuild the city 2 different times after massive earthquakes. Not only that, but to defend against the possible invasion of the west coast of the United States from the Japanese or whoever else wanted to try it. You've got a real disparity between the people that enlist into the service and the people who basically just exist in their own little world, and really think of the military as this group of aliens who comes down, serves for X number of years, and then we allow them to integrate back into our society. It's sad, but I've heard people actually explain it like that. I've enlisted people that worked at Apple in Cupertino, California. That was one of my areas where I recruited. One of the most affluent communities in the nation of Los Altos Hills. I've put people in from there. One of the high schools that's in that area is Lynbrook High School, where I kid you not, kids are driving 7 Series Mercedes to school. This is not somebody who's going to be impressed with hard work and the value of serving our nation.
The enticement of a free pair of boots just doesn't hold.
Not going to hold any sway with them. No. But then again, going 12 or 13 or 15 miles the other direction into San Jose, this is the end of the illegal immigrant pipeline. Once you make it to San Jose, you're in like Flynn, because there's no way any immigration force is going to be able to deport anybody, because that would literally take nearly half the city.
That's kind of a stunning number, and I'll just say, last time I was in Los Angeles, during the daytime, it's a gigantic mishmash of people from many different cultures. I mean, it's probably the definition of multiculturalism. And but after about 6 o'clock at night, it becomes like Guatemala.
Think about it. We grew up in Los Angeles area. We grew up in the Southland, as it was called back then. Olvera Street was one of the best places that we could go to get a taste of actual legit Mexican culture. There was Koreatown in LA. There was China.
Or maybe the missions would have been a good taste of legit Mexican Spanish culture.
Yeah, I mean, the missions weren't Mexican. The missions were Spanish.
For Spanish, but that became, after time, it became Mexican.
Yeah. So, I mean, the thing is that, at least for me, I was being, if I had the ideal recruit that I could get in and put into the uniform and know that he was going to get in with no problems, give me a guy from Africa or Ukraine, but only in Africa if they weren't from Sierra Leone, because the dudes from Sierra Leone, we did the same thing in that area of San Jose that the government did with the resettlement of the Somalis and putting them in Minnesota. You're talking about people that generally left a really, really bad situation, both in Somalia and as well as in Sierra Leone. There were brutal civil wars. I can remember talking with quite a few people in Sierra Leone. They had nothing but their greatest desire was to serve in the U.S. Army for giving them a chance at having a better life in the United States than what they would have had. I mean, these to me are the people that we want here in the United States. These are people that truly want to embrace this country as their own, leaving behind a foreign entity and swear allegiance to none others. But that's not what we get half the time. And I'll tell you from the standpoint of, in the Bay Area, there's a lot of smart kids, but they're all smoking pot. And they all smoked 2 days before I tried to take them down to the MEPS. So guess who didn't get to join, right?
That's that's kind of a very interesting way out that ends up having no consequence, basically, to the enlistee, other than because if you get denied at MEPS, there's nothing that necessarily prevents you from getting a job or anything in the future, rather than getting anything.
No. I mean, there's a difference between getting kicked out of the military and never being allowed in. There's plenty of people who can't get in, whether it's a physical disability. There was an individual who had used LSD, and they said, no thanks, you can't play. Guy was otherwise physically and morally capable, just had used LSD. They said, nope, no thanks.
And considering that the military only does a blood or a urine test on entry, and considering the short half-life that it has in the human body, I mean, it's rapidly metabolized.
Not if you're a fat guy.
No. LSD's even gone much fast. I'll tell you what, LSD's gone a hell of a lot faster for a fat guy than marijuana is.
No,
marijuana
that's
probably
what I'm talking about. If you're a fat guy and you're
beneficial.
smoking marijuana, you're not going to be able to join for anywhere between 45 and 60 days if you stop right then.
If you are a fat guy who smokes marijuana on a daily basis, you are not going to pee clean for 3 months minimum.
Yeah. So, but I mean, it's not to say that folks who, like I said, the problem that I see here is that we have a national emergency in the terms of the health of our enlistment pool. And, when you think about it, our enlistment pool is really, really very small compared to the population that we have.
Yeah, because we have 10-year-olds and 10-year-old boys that need bras. We have 12-year-old boys that weigh 340 pounds.
Yeah. Yeah, and what are those guys going to do? They're only going to be let in things like we had in Iraq in 2003 and 2004, where it was like, hey, you're fat, don't worry, we suspended standards. Come on in, you can catch a bullet with everybody else. And I'll tell you right now, what we're going through is we're going through the drawdown, and guys like me who have served over 20 years, we are seeing, our junior soldiers that are only allowed to stay in for 5-6 years. And they're saying, hey, thanks, but no thanks. Thank you for your service. Go find a civilian job.
And they'll be able to, once they have that clearance and a history of 4 years of service, they'll be able to find a job that pays them triple what they were making in the military.
Quite possible.
If they go to a contractor.
Quite possible.
That's a little bit depressing. All right, so let's get on to something fun. You went to Gouger Mountain, your local friendly neighborhood merchant.
I sure did. Yeah, and
how did the merchant treat you?
Well, the employees of the merchant treated me actually very well, and I'd like to relate an anecdote that came from one of them. And I'm getting close to retirement. It's no secret. I've done my time. So I was talking to one of the employees.
A great old man.
Yeah, I talked to a couple of the employees, and a couple of them were like, "Yeah, it's a good place to work." And then I came up to the checkout counter and spoke to one of the more burly Americans, and I said, Gander Mountain, how do you like working here? And he's like, "Well, when they say we live outdoors, And I said, yeah. He goes, that's not a lie. They don't pay us enough to live in nice houses. We have to fucking live outside in tents. I was like, oh, that hurts.
That's it. That's a welcome to the wage slave world right there. There's no BAH at Gander.
No, and that's the funny thing, because, you know, when I think about, and probably what about 70% of retirement eligible non-commissioned officers. These are guys that are the sergeants. These are the master sergeants, the sergeants first class. These are the guys that have been through it all, seen it all in the last 15, 20 years. These are the ones that I want, you know, these are the guys that I typically would want to stay in long term because they have the combat experience. You know, every single one of them, I ask them, what are you going to do when you retire? Every single one of them, including myself, say, sit on my ass. I want no responsibility, and I don't want to take responsibility for somebody else's kid who's 30 years old. I want to sit around. I want to scratch myself inappropriately. I want to make lewd comments. I want to, you know, go back to being the person that I am, and I don't want to have anybody tell me that I can't.
How long will you go between haircuts?
For me, haircuts are one of those things that I actually prefer to have short hair. I think I had long hair from the time I was like maybe 10 to 12. And yeah, no. I
remember your bullet.
I ain't doing that no more. So
I remember that.
The funny thing is, you know, you can have short hair and you're not considered, you know, a white supremacist like you were in the early 90s under the Clintons, because anybody that was a white guy that had short hair, you know, you were a white supremacist. Well, that's not the case anymore, because we've had 15 years of nearly nonstop war, and quite a few of us that have had short hair have served in uniform. And you can't be a racist in the military, because guess what? That's another one of the non-negotiables. You're going to be in less trouble.
Well, yeah, because
you're going to be in less trouble
for
having a boyfriend if you're a boy in the military than it is if you were going to be a racist.
Well, Gunnery Sergeant Highway said it best. You know, there are no wops, spics, greasers, or niggers. This is all, you are all equally worthless.
That's right. That's and look what it got for him.
Yeah.
Taken out by a fat guy.
Stress card would have helped that situation.
I don't know.
So let's do a quick product review. I ended up going to a gun show over the weekend and was able to get my hands on what I consider to be a fairly decent value. I picked up a Maverick 88 by Mossberg 12-gauge pump, and this had a 26-inch barrel on it, so it's appropriate for hunting. It's got a 6-round capacity, and I did not have the plug to limit the capacity to 2 rounds for hunting regulations. But otherwise, it's a well-made, dependable shotgun. There's a few differences between that and a Mossberg 500. The main difference being the placement of the safety on the Mossberg. It's up on the top of the receiver where you push it forward or backwards for safer fire. And on the Maverick, it's more in a position similar to the Remington 870, right in front of the trigger guard. Other than that, it's a great little shotgun that I think are becoming a little more rare on the secondary market, especially with hunting season coming around and. Well, just the pure desire for people to have something that doesn't have papers on it.
Yeah, you know, that's the way things go, right? I think that when it comes to the Mossberg series, you know, I haven't heard anything bad about the 88. I haven't really heard anybody that's ever really had a big complaint against Mossberg unless it was for their MP series rifles. I don't think you can go wrong with any of the Mossberg series shotguns. I think they're tried, tested, and they're reliable, and they have the longevity of being around. Now, what's the capacity on yours?
It's a 6+1, so it's a 7-round total capacity, but the magazine holds 6, and it feeds just like a Mossberg. You feed it from the bottom, not from the side or anything funky like that. It's got a double transfer bar on the pump, which means that when you pull the pump back, it actually operates two arms and not just one to cycle the bolt. The bolt is not jeweled, but it's highly polished stainless and polymer furniture on it. It's got a full stock and a polymer forend. It's got a little bit of ribbing on it, and I think it's a decent shotgun. Well suited to many different roles. It's quite versatile, and for the price that I paid for it, $135, I don't think you could go wrong. I didn't necessarily have the funds for it at the time, but it was something I couldn't pass up. So, I think in the end that's a hell of a value right there.
Yeah. Well, I think that one of the things that I started looking at was the pawn shops in my area. I live in a very very leftist leaning college, actually university. It's not a college. It is a premier university, and I live in this town, and just the market for rifles in this area is almost nil. Shotguns are king out here. But you can go into a Gander Mountain, or you can go into Walmart. You can expect to pay about $450 for just a regular Mossberg 500 right off the rack. In my area, there's a couple of pawn shops that are selling these for $250 all the way up to $325, and these are regular Mossberg 500s. A couple of the Winchester 1400s, like what I already have. A couple of the 1187s. Decent shotguns for quite a few pennies off. So I think that if I go through and I get ready to do another shotgun purchase, it's probably going to be through these guys.
That's nice to have a local distributor, a local businessman who's willing to put the effort into his customer, carry a good supply. There is a smaller gun shop near me, and one of the things that end up in my area tend to be a little bit more pricey just because it saves you the drive to someplace with a better price. So I guess you figure in your time and your effort into the price of these things. And I find it interesting that in these somewhat economically depressed times in the state of Texas with the oil crisis, so to speak, and the boom going bust, he's actually increased his stock and taken on a large number of new firearms. So shout out Port O'Connor Rod and Gun.
There you go, POC baby. So Michael, we need to talk about some firearm safety.
Oh yeah, I think we do. All right. So first rule of firearm safety is every firearm is loaded until you visually and physically inspect and ensure that the firearm is not loaded. Rule number 2 is keep the muzzle pointed in a safe direction at all times. Don't cover anything you do not wish to destroy. Rule number 3, know what your target is and know what's beyond your target. And the 4th rule, the most important rule, the only rule that you really have to follow, absolutely, is keep the booger hook off the bang switch until you are ready to discharge the weapon. No accidental discharges. It's all negligence.
And so, Michael, there is something that I have to admit. I think I was actually approached by a listener to our show because
no way.
This is one of the things that during the week just blew my mind. I was at a soccer game, and one of the individuals from the Washington D.C. area was talking to me. He saw that I had some hunting related camo on, and he was talking about it. And the very first thing you got to keep your booger hook off the bang switch. And I just looked at him for a second, and I'm like, you must listen to my brother. And he says, "Are you Nick?" And I was like, whoa, how about that?
Wow, that's wild. That's wild. Well,
so,
give that man a shout out.
I don't know his name. He plays...
shout out to the anonymous man.
Yeah, he has a daughter that plays for the Washington and Lee soccer district out of Washington, D.C. I think they're in Arlington. So, and his first listener interaction that didn't involve somebody wanting to shank me. So I guess that's positive.
It's either probably really, really cool or really, really fucking scary. One of the two.
was pretty scary at first, but then that gave way to being pretty cool.
Oh yeah, well, hey, that's actually kind of awesome. I almost feared that contact, saying, "Oh yeah, you're that asshole on the radio, aren't you?"
Scared the shit out of me at first. I ain't gonna lie.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I think that's something that's legitimate to discuss. I mean, we discuss objects and concept and God-given rights that are guaranteed by the Constitution, not rights granted by the Constitution. And we discuss it in a manner that is reasonable and practical and all sorts of, based in all sorts, and really the only kind of reality that we know. And we talk about things that are not necessarily like okay for primetime TV. And I mean, that's like language and, intonation aside. We cover subjects that are frankly
not advertiser friendly.
Not advertiser friendly. So yeah, I think you're well warranted to have a bit of fear. Who the fuck are you, buddy?
So,
well, shout out to the guy who's got a kid on a soccer team. That's kind of funny.
Yeah. Scared the hell out of me for a second.
Check your car GPS monitor.
Yeah. So that's one of those things. I think that as we're inching closer. We're inching closer to the favorite time of year. I'm starting to see the trees do this wonderful thing where they're changing colors, and some of the leaves have decided that it's better off to be on the ground than still standing. So make sure that you folks are taking a little bit of time out of your weekend to take one rifle or shotgun out of the shelf. Go ahead, give it the old safety inspection, and then put a light coat of your favorite lubricating agent on it. Show it a little love, and it'll take care of you later on down the road.
I agree with that, and I'm going to refer back to the Fire Clean and the Frog Lube controversy, with those being made out of vegetable-based oils and Crisco and whatnot. I use motor oil or gear oil. And look, they're machines, and I've got kind of a interesting anecdote about that. I picked up a SIG a while back, and you read through the SIG literature, and it's you must use SIG lubricant, you must use this, that, and the other. That it's SIG branded products, and it reminds me of buying a motorcycle, and you read it, and it's like, this must only be used with Honda motor oil, blah 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 blah, and there are machines. There's a reason why there's a whole industry around it, why we have all these products. Motor oil will work fine. Gear oil will work fine as a lubricant, as an oil protectant for your firearm. You don't necessarily need to spend a gajillion dollars on anything.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, we're getting ready to be in front of the bumper music. It's good to be back. Sorry I had to take an unannounced leave last week.
Life happens to people, and it gave a chance to get a new perspective on the show.
There you go. Yeah, well, Michael, it's good to be back on here with you. Glad I got a chance to get in here. I'll say a big shout to our friend of the show, Oddball, who is out and about and amongst in sundry and assorted places of the world. We hoping you get back safe soon, and get a chance to get back with your family and have a good time. Taking some well-deserved time off.
That man a Whataburger.
Yeah, he's going to eat a couple of them, I'm sure.
I hope he does. I'd like to buy him one if I get a chance to hook up with him. Nick, it's been wonderful talking to you. I'd like to thank Jules at UCY.TV. I'm just going to stump for a second. If you guys got a couple shekels to throw her way, please do. She runs it, she funds it, and it's the greatest gift we've got. So take care, people. Thank you very much. UCY.TV, your home for everything you don't get in. Stick around. Thanks.